Welcome back to our channel 217 Prince YT. We explain in the dim cavern. The flickering flames held high by the hunters sliced through the gloom, casting long shadows across the rubble-strewn floor. Their eyes narrowed, adjusting quickly as the veil of darkness lifted. "We've got a clear view now," one of them called out, a tremor of resolve surfacing in his voice. The command was immediate and sharp. "Take on combat positions." Without hesitation, the squad scattered across the terrain, adopting defensive stances. Torches blazed at their sides, and weapons glinted under the firelight. Blue crystals, their source of magic, hummed faintly in each hand. Each step they took echoed with purpose, their bodies braced for the unseen threat. From the murky distance, a low rumble answered. The ground trembled as enormous reptilian beasts emerged, their scales shimmering with an otherworldly glow, eyes gleaming like twin coals. Serpentine and primal, they slithered forward with a hunger that chilled even the battle-hardened to the bone. "Collection team, since there's only the two of you," the field leader shouted to the yellow-suited pair lagging behind. "I want you to stick close to us and collect quickly." Even as the tension crackled in the air, far away from the group, Suho's figure stood alone before an ominous altar. A glowing black key appeared in his hand, its edges pulsating with energy. A silent command pulsed from his lips. "Arise." Dark mist poured across the cracked floor. Shadows twisted and peeled away from the corpses littering the battlefield, their forms rebuilding into ghastly silhouettes of goblin commanders and centurions. One by one, 7 soldiers took shape beneath the purple glow, their eyes empty but obedient. Due to his growing intelligence stat, his army of shadow soldiers had expanded, and they now awaited his word. Back on the front lines, the clash reached a fever pitch. A final beast reeled back, battered and lifeless, before collapsing into the earth. With a brief inhale, the lead hunter raised a hand. "I think we're done here. Everyone, take a break." Their shoulders slackened for the first time, not out of relief, but in preparation for whatever was coming next. The flickering flames barely masked the irritation rising in the squad leader's voice. His eyes narrowed as he repeated the words. "A break? Already?" Turning away from the smoldering remains of the monsters, he let out a low breath. "Even if we want to hunt more, there are only 2 members in our collection team, so it can't be helped." His clenched fists revealed the frustration beneath. "To think the collection team that's supposed to be supporting us is holding us back." But before another thought could form, his expression shifted. His eyes caught an eerie, flickering glow emerging from the corridor. He froze. In the faint blue light, figures began to rise from the shadows, phantom-like soldiers, their eyes glowing with unnatural intensity. They marched with discipline, silent yet fierce, and trailed a chilling aura behind them. 2 men in hazmat suits stood paralyzed as the summoned shadows brushed past them, their ghostly forms sweeping across the corridor with precision and purpose. "Things are really easy with Suho around," one muttered with disbelief. "The strike team is slower than I thought." The other followed the scene with wide eyes, whispering. "They're already done with the collection?" Stumbling toward one of the shadow soldiers, one of them stammered, "Is this your summon?" From behind them, Suho appeared, calm and unfazed. "Yes, why do you ask?" The other collector leaned in, whispering with concern. He must be trying to pick a fight again, but instead of conflict, the man stepped forward and gripped Suho's hand tightly in both of his own. "Please, become an exclusive collection team member of our strike team." Caught off guard, Suho looked down at the man's desperate grip. I don't intend to keep doing collection work," the collector practically begged, eyes gleaming with hope. "We'll pay you the highest salary based on the market." Before the conversation could continue, a voice cut through the dark. "Captain." One of the strike team members ran up, panic flooding his voice. "We got trouble." Within moments, the captain stood beside the collector team, his expression turning grim as he heard the news. "We've discovered a normal person's corpse." "A corpse?" the captain repeated, his tone sharp with disbelief. They turned to the cold stone floor, and there it was. A body, twisted and broken. Faint pulses of corrupted mana still clung to its limbs. Its skin was scorched, its eyes lifeless and wide. A sickening silence hung in the air. It wasn't just another victim of the dungeon. This was something far worse. The bitter aftermath lingered in the air as Suho and the task force approached the scorched remains of a figure sprawled across the tiles. The stench of burnt flesh still clung to the walls of Seoul Station's underground. One of the rescue squad members knelt beside the body, his voice tense. It really is a corpse. Around them, other hunters studied the scene with grim faces. The victim was no monster. The remnants of human attire, a charred accessory still fused to its wrist, spoke of a civilian caught in the crossfire. Seeing as how this person was wearing an accessory, one of the investigators muttered, "They're likely to be a normal person." But the signs didn't add up. The manner of death, the type of flame. I've never heard of any monster using fire in Seoul Station, though. Suspicion deepened, eyes turning towards Suho. Suho, could this corpse be? He didn't hesitate. The image that flickered in his mind was clear. The chaos, the unnatural flame, the howling fury from earlier. I'm thinking the same thing too, he said firmly. I think it's a mistburn. The name dropped like a blade into the silence. The flicker of recognition passed through one of the fire squad's eyes. A mistburn? Is that the new type of monster that burns with a blue flame? Suho nodded, expression grave as memories surfaced. I'm sure of it. There was a mistburn incident that occurred at my university. In the air around them, the temperature seemed to drop again, as if the name alone summoned the dread of something unseen, something intelligent, something evolving. One scout calls out in alarm, pointing to a collapsed figure on the ground. Another responds from further up the tunnel. Another body discovered, lifeless and sprawled unnaturally beneath a flickering light. The tension among the team sharpens instantly. The squad captain whirls around, his senses alert. More bodies. This wasn't just a stray anomaly anymore. That a subordinate approaches quickly, eyes wide beneath his helmet. Strike captain, he says, lowering his voice. Should we stop the hunt and report this to the association first? But the captain says nothing. He stares into the dark, deep in thought, weighing risk against duty. Around them, the corridor is filled with shadows and the eerie stillness of death. The captain's eyes narrow. This is definitely a strange phenomenon, he finally murmurs, his gaze falling on the victims. But based on what they're wearing, they're clearly civilians, not hunters. He looks back at his team, C and D rank awakened, all steady and equipped. Our party should be able to handle this, he says to himself, affirming his resolve that he lifts his head decisively. Let's keep advancing for now. A chorus of silent nods follows, except for one hunter at the rear, whose eyes twitch with disbelief. Yes, I was waiting for you to say that, trying to mask his nerves with forced enthusiasm. But his inner voice betrays the fear tightening in his chest. We're advancing, despite this situation. The shadows around them stretch as they move forward, deeper into unknown danger. The mistburns are more dangerous than you think. But before the weight of his warning could fully settle, the strike team captain stepped forward, confidence unwavering. I'm the strike captain, so I'm the one who decides what we do. His words struck with finality, slicing through the tension like a blade. The collection team is to wrap things up here and follow behind us. The collection workers exchanged uneasy glances, dread pulling at their expressions. Must we see mistburns again? One muttered with resignation. You have a running skill, right? Came the nervous reply. Yeah, why do you ask? The Suho asked. But even as jest crept into their words, Suho's intense gaze sharpened in the distance. His eyes, steady and dark with awareness, scanned the darkness ahead. If something does go wrong, run away immediately. After all, we don't know what kind of dangers lie ahead, he warned coldly. For no one could predict what lurked deeper within. Beyond the collapsing light of their torches, darkness opened its jaws, until a sudden surge of blue light exploded into the corridor, accompanied by a blood-curdling scream. The air turned frigid, pierced by anguished shrieks. Bodies convulsed under waves of cerulean flame. Whatever had been hidden had finally struck. The enemy was swift, merciless, and far beyond their expectations. Dozens of humanoid figures twisted and screamed, caught in the wash of eerie blue fire. One by one, their strength crumbled as shadowed silhouettes moved toward the heart of the chaos. The fire isn't strong enough, one monster muttered with disdain, staring at the writhing victims with eyes devoid of emotion. Hey, how's the firewood supply problem coming along? The monsters weren't just killing, they were harvesting, and the tunnel had become a furnace of death. Blue fire crackles through the shadows, wrapping around the jagged armor of the hulking figure. His presence alone twists the air, malice made manifest. Glowing red eyes peer from beneath a horned helm, framed in dark flames. His voice slithers through the cold darkness like a blade. We were told there's a problem at our supply grounds, so the shipment isn't moving smoothly. Looks like we'll have to ask that human to come up with a new plan to get supplies, the commander mutters. Another creature, lupin in shape, its body wrapped in bandages and exuding raw menace, lets out a growl that ends in fractured speech. Replenish. Urgent. More figures sit in wait within the chamber, commanders draped in armor resembling demons from myth. One leans back in disbelief, voice dripping with disdain. I can't believe the hyena guild that's been supplying us with firewood faced a problem. He narrows his gaze across the glowing pods. At this rate, the output of our stardust production will be much lower than that of the other factories. At that moment, something shifts in the air. A sudden stiffness. A presence. Another creature lifts its head, sniffing the tension as if tasting prey from afar. Above, presence, I feel. Did hunters come? Another asks, a grin slicing across its face. Since we're in need of firewood, this is great. A cloaked figure steps forward, each footstep slicing the air with sharp resolve. I go. The order carries weight. Around him, underlings stir into action. You guys, prepare offering. Summon comrades. You know you need to capture them alive, right? One of the commanders reminds him. The figure halts in the dark corridor, his cloak drifting behind like liquid smoke. Of course, he replies with a cruel grin. And then he leaps, vanishing into the shadows like a blade drawn from its sheath. Far above, unaware of the horrors that await, the strike team presses onward, blades clashing as mutated monsters crawl up the tunnel walls. The air tightens. War is brewing. The green glow of purified cores reflected in their eyes like currency from another world. Smiles curled across faces, the thrill of profit finally settling in. One of the hunters chuckled, watching the day's catch pile up. Looks like we'll be able to earn a lot today, he said with quiet satisfaction, eyes scanning the crystal remains of felled beasts. It was a good decision to continue hunting. The other agreed, glancing toward the deeper end of the ruin. Danger still lingered, but the promise of reward was louder than fear. Then, a voice rose from behind them, steady and deliberate. We also have a fantastic collection team today. The strike captain stepped forward, something clutched tightly in his hand, his expression unusually serious. His fingers twitched as he reached into his coat. With a swift flick, he revealed a shimmering orb, radiating raw magical potency. I've been saving this for the right moment. Shall I use it? A soft pulse of mana stirred the air. All eyes turned to him as he raised the orb like a relic. This is stardust. Have you guys heard of it? A sharp gasp followed. Wow, that's a mana amplification stimulant that's been selling like hotcakes in the hunter world recently. I heard it's really hard to get, one of the younger hunters muttered, almost incredulously. I can't believe you were hiding some. It only lasts for 1 week, the captain explained, walking among them, his voice tinged with subtle anticipation. But it's supposed to increase the rank of lower-ranked awakened by 1. The thought alone lit sparks of ambition in their eyes. As the captain stared down at the orb, he murmured, if I eat this, I'll also have mana that's C rank or above. His fingers curled around the object, ready to consume it, when something rippled through the corridor behind him. A shadow darted just beyond the edge of light. He paused. From the darkness, a figure moved, unnaturally fast. Its form was cloaked in deathly stillness, except for the single fluid motion of its blade. Oops, the creature muttered coldly, a whisper barely riding the air before it was gone. The next instant, the beast lunged from the shadows, blade slashing like a silent guillotine. The captain turned in horror, his hand frozen mid-motion. Need. Alive. The hunter's face twisted as someone, seized him from behind, restraining him as if he were prey. A streak of red and violet aura laced the air. His screams were cut off by a hiss of breath as the shadow beasts closed in, their objective crystal clear. The sharp clash of steel rang through the tunnel as the mysterious figure darted across the shattered tracks, his movements a blur of deadly precision. Behind him, panicked voices echoed. Captain! A terrified hunter gasped, stumbling backward as the dark shape passed them in a blink. But the monster's low, guttural voice stopped them cold. Not dead. Fear gripped the hunters like a vice. One staggered back, eyes wide. A monster, he muttered, his voice shaking. Did it just speak? The battlefield descended into chaos. Steel met steel as the monster hurled another hunter like a ragdoll. Yet in the midst of the clash, The creature calmly counted. 1, 2, 3. With each word, his burning red eyes locked onto his prey, analyzing, choosing. Total, 10 people. The towering figure now stood alone against the formation of armed hunters. Their weapons rose, but his focus was cold and clinical. Tough. Opponents. He raised a clawed hand, brushing aside the assessment. No need. 10 people. From within his cloak, he revealed a glowing orb, identical to the one held by the strike captain moments earlier. Strong hunters. I kill. The glimmer of the mana stimulant, stardust, reflected in his monstrous eyes. Gasps rang out behind the hunters. Stardust? A monster can eat stardust too? Panic surged. Whatever advantage they thought they held had vanished. The line between man and beast blurred, and now, the enemy was evolving. A deep growl tore through the stillness as the monstrous entity's jaws spread open wide, rows of serrated fangs glistening with bloodlust. Its voice cut through the gloom like a blade. Bingo! Eyes wide with panic, the hunters realized the growing danger. The creature had consumed the stardust. There was no more time. We must kill it before the stardust starts taking effect. A single command broke the moment's hesitation. The hunters lunged forward in unison, blades raised, spells readied. Everyone attack. Magic and steel surged together. One hunter led the charge, his sword igniting with fierce energy. Flames burst across the cavern, slicing toward the advancing demon. The others followed, launching spells, releasing arrows, shouting with all the force of desperation and survival. A fireball roared to life, searing its path toward the monster. It collided. For a heartbeat, the light engulfed everything. But from within the flames, shadows moved. The air snapped to darkness. What the hell? It's dark. I can't see anything at all. The light was gone, and so was their sense of control. The cavern erupted into chaos. Crimson slashes tore through the void, cutting screams short mid-breath. Gah! Help! Oh, monster! It was everywhere. Or maybe just everywhere they looked last. And in the chaos, those glowing eyes. Blood stained the stone. Severed limbs hit the floor like discarded sticks. And in the thick silence that followed, he stood alone. Amid the torn limbs and broken armor, the demon loomed tall, dripping in carnage, its outline flickering with malicious energy. Below its feet lay shattered weapons and fallen comrades. He confirmed that. Firewood obtained. Then, a new presence stirred in the shadows of the rail tunnel. The system lit up in front of Suho. Alert! A quest has arrived. The message materialized fully before him, crisp and clear. Quest: rescue the survivors. There are people nearby who have been captured by a demon. Save as many of them as possible. The rewards given will depend on the number of people rescued. Current number of survivors, 7. Number of rescued survivors, 0. Suho's breath caught as he read the words. Captured by a demon? His eyes, sharp and focused, narrowed toward the trail of blood ahead. A demon? The voice of the shadow beside him cut through the heavy silence. Young monarch, what's the matter? Suho remained quiet for a moment, eyes scanning the flickering blue glow of the quest window. His brows furrowed in thought. A new quest had appeared. The words were brief, but their weight hung heavily in the air. Demons had kidnapped humans. They're nearby, Suho muttered. And the more people I save, the more rewards I'll receive. But his tone lacked greed. His gaze sharpened, which means people are already in danger. He clenched his fists, the dark aura curling at his side in silent anticipation. Tension cracked the air. Suho turned to the instructor. Hey, I think something's happened to the strike team. What? The instructor asked in disbelief. Get out of the dungeon, Suho commanded, his voice leaving no room for debate. How do you know that? The question hung in the air. Suho's reply was swift and cold. My gut. The decision came immediately. He called the goblins from his shadow. Blue light shimmered beneath the feet of the others as Suho nodded. The goblins will take you to the entrance. But wait. What about you, Suho? The instructor asked immediately. Suho's eyes were resolute. I'm going to find the strike team. The instructor hesitated. Fear, doubt. But finally, he nodded. All right. I'll only be a hindrance if I stay behind. I'll ask the Hunter Association for help the moment I'm out. Suho gave a slight nod. Thanks. And with that, he turned, stepping into the darkness alone. Now, deeper within the chaos, the clang of bone against stone echoed. Suho, now fully armed and cloaked in ethereal frost, stepped forth with purpose. He didn't break stride. We need to move swiftly. With that, his boots thundered against the cold floor, the storm of battle racing behind his determined eyes. A violent crack shatters the silence as the ground explodes beneath a surging force, a shadowed figure leaping forward like a streak of lightning. The air bends and ripples with raw momentum as his presence disappears into the misted ruins. Within the depths of the ruined station, a ghostly green glow pulses from a battered control room. The remnants of what once was now hang lifeless and cold, tendrils of mist curling around shattered tiles. Blood stains the floor in streaks like forgotten warnings. From green to crimson, the corridors shift in hue as shadows stretch beyond the reach of the dim lights. Along the path, more trails of red appear, smeared across the walls and dragging toward the darkness, silent testimonies to the chaos that passed through. Then, a sudden flurry of motion. A man is hurled across the corridor like a discarded puppet, crashing into debris with a dull thud. The light in his eyes fades into stillness. Inside a chamber cloaked in eerie blue and blood-lit crimson, monstrous beings tower over a pile of corpses. One of them speaks in a guttural tone, holding the limp body of a victim in one clawed hand. Firewood. Obtained. A second monster responds with an unsettling calm. You came back quickly. Their shadows flicker against the cold stone. In the center, the gate pulses with rising power. The gate will soon open, and demons will be summoned. The creature intones. I win. Quickly, as if amused, the higher-ranked demon hisses back. Okay. As a commemoration of your quick victory, arrange the firewood. The lifeless corpse is dropped among the others. Another groans from the floor, still barely clinging to life. Not fair, he whispers, before the silence takes him too. Crackling with infernal energy, the creatures gather the bodies, firewood, as they called them, stacked like offerings. One grins in satisfaction. I'm glad we're able to replenish the firewood. Glowing vials of glimmering dust materialize, refined from the corpses through a hellish process. With this, we should be able to produce this batch of stardust without any issues. The ritual continues beneath the blood-dimmed lights, cold, precise, and monstrous. Within the darkened lair, a faint glow danced in the shadows as one of the demons lifted a glimmering orb, its surface swirling with violent energy. He spoke with a hush of reverence, declaring the arrival of a new compound, an evolution of their dark craft. The poison taught to them through forbidden demon techniques, fused now with an awakening stimulant birthed from berserker venom, had given rise to a new power, stardust. The orb radiated ominous potential, its light casting a twisted glow on the skeletal corpse below. But even as it promised strength, it came at a cost. The berserker poison's magic-enhancing capabilities were undeniable, yet it gnawed away at the very life force of those who used it. There was a cruel elegance to their refinement. The demonic essence crystals, when ignited by the blood of demons, bore devastating side effects. But the solution was simple in their eyes. Replace those flames with fireborn of hell's own misborns. In that exchange, their dark science would be perfected. One of the hulking dragon-faced demons grinned, sharp teeth glinting with satisfaction. It was thanks to the apostle that they had unlocked such wicked innovation. The knowledge of crafting this poison, of harvesting living souls and perverting them into tools of destruction, had all been passed down from that enigmatic being. Corrupted beings, twisted monsters once human, thrashed in pain as their minds unraveled. Their screams, feral and senseless, were a living testament to what the apostle had done. Their reason stripped, their will devoured, they existed now as weapons, pawns, and still, these lower demons reveled in it. Thanks to that, demons like us finally have a chance to rise, one sneered. Another nodded in agreement, a faint shimmer crossing his monstrous eye. But before their celebration could go further, a ripple of danger pierced the air. One of them stiffened, his senses igniting. Someone was closing in. Swiftly, there are still hunters left, a demon questioned, rising to its feet. The atmosphere shifted. The door at the edge of the hall stood closed, but not for long. From the depths of the corridor came a burst of motion, blinding, razor-sharp. A blur of energy tore across the ground, wind shattering stone as it surged forward. Then, with explosive force, the figure slammed into the door ahead, an entrance no longer a barrier, but a target. Something powerful had entered their domain, and it wasn't there to negotiate. A thunderous shockwave slammed down as Suho landed with devastating force, cracking the ground beneath him. Dust and energy swirled in chaotic spirals, leaving the gathered demons momentarily stunned. His silver hair caught the flicker of unnatural light, and his sharp gaze cut through the haze like a blade. His eyes scanned the monstrous congregation before him, shadows cloaked in sinister power, twisted forms looming with hellish auras. "Is this the place?" he muttered to himself. Opposite him, demonkind stared back, grotesque visages and eyes gleaming with ancient malice. Suho's expression hardened, his breath steady as the scent of scorched air and blood coiled around him. His focus shifted past them to what lay beyond. In front of him, they are demons. Are they demons? Suho's voice was low, stunned yet growing colder. The infernal pit glowed behind the cultists, the flames licking upward like the mouths of the damned. A perverse altar, twisted and glowing with demonic runes, served as their stage, a stage upon which the agony of the helpless was sacrificed in the name of power. And those things at the back, his jaw clenched, the heat of anger rising behind his eyes. His mind raced, piecing the horrors together. They've tied up a few mist burns and are burning them. Is that some kind of ritual? Suddenly, a ping, a digital pulse from his system. An alert. Current number of survivors, 7. Number of rescued survivors, 0. Relief flickered across his expression for only a second. Fortunately, the survivors are still safe. Before he could finish his thought, the demon attack. But Suho dodged on time. The demon's eyes widened as it was hurled back, stunned by the sheer velocity and power of the boy's sudden assault. The silence of ritual was shattered, and with it, the calm before the storm. Suho's voice cut through the haze, sharp and unrelenting. "Are you the ones who killed the hunters I saw on my way here?" There was no time for answers. He was already in motion. Suho's reflexes were honed, unshakable. With effortless precision, he twisted past the clawed strike and retaliated with a devastating punch that sent the demon reeling back. High above, in the shadows, the remaining 2 demons watched with surprise creeping into their expressions. "He's able to dodge even though the youngest was enhanced with stardust," one of them muttered darkly. "It seems we'll have to help out." One took a step forward, its body warping with unnatural motion. In a blink, Suho was once again locked in a deadly clash, his arms a flurry of movement, blocking, striking, driving his enemy back with relentless speed and raw force. Sparks and shockwaves erupted around them as their blows collided. From the side, the larger demon's eyes narrowed, glowing with primal hunger. A single command rumbled from his throat. "Step aside, youngest." Suho's gaze hardened as the enormous creature surged forward, its monstrous fist hurtling through the air. But the hunter didn't flinch. Lightning-like energy swirled around him. His eyes gleamed with terrifying clarity. And then, the air shattered. The battlefield detonated in a burst of movement as Suho lunged forward, his foot crashing against the cracked ground. A rippling force shattered outward with the shock of his launch, scattering debris in all directions. The demons reacted, too late. The moment they turned, he was already upon them. Behind the blur of motion, Suho's eyes widened. A crackle of energy lit up behind him. Something was coming fast. And then impact. The demon strikes with otherworldly electricity. Purple lightning streaked through the air, jagged and alive. In a blink, it condensed into humanoid forms, bursting through the dark with sheer intensity. One after another, the beings materialized, forged of shadow and charged with otherworldly electricity. The glow pulsed in sync with the clash of wills now erupting in the room. From the void of his power, Suho's hand extended, and with it, his voice, calm yet commanding. "Arise." The words sounded like a declaration of war. In its wake, shadowy forms clawed their way into existence, writhing up from the black storm encircling his aura. Their figures flickered, monstrous and vicious, but obedient only to the one who summoned them. Their eyes glowed with a haunting blue light. silent witnesses to their master's command. And then, without warning, a skeletal figure cloaked in demonic armor appeared behind Suho. A surge of dark magic rippled from the creature as it latched onto him, a blade of cursed intent buried deep into his back. Could that be? The demon's voice trembled, but Suho's expression remained unmoved. The pain meant nothing. The storm he commanded was far from over. The air cracked as Suho's body twisted midair, his frame spiraling downward with supernatural momentum. A blazing arc of shadow energy followed him, cleaving through the battlefield like a comet descending from the heavens. The demon's figure slammed into the ground with devastating force, sending out a rippling shockwave of dust and dark aura. From the shadows, the monstrous lieutenants of the enemy forces exchanged startled glances. The beast-headed one narrowed his crimson eyes, his voice low and tense. "Boss, that's—" "Yes," the leader growled, baring razor-sharp teeth in a grim smile. "That's what we saw on the day the demons were exterminated." A memory, stained with blood and seared into terror, flickered in his mind. The silhouette of a lone man standing tall amidst carnage, the sky burned orange behind him, the corpses of dragons and demons alike strewn at his feet. That looks exactly like the authority of the Shadow Monarch. And in the flicker of an instant, one of that demons reassured himself with narrowed confidence. Although Suho's shadowy summons erupted around him in a rush, their ethereal glow filling the battlefield with blue flame. "That's utterly weak," the demon murmured, as compared to the Shadow Monarch. Even as the summoned shades tore into their ranks with coordinated fury, the enemy commander's gaze stayed locked on the youth at the center. "Well, if he's not the Shadow Monarch," he declared, "then there's no need to be scared of him." He surged forward with his blade, joined by his comrades, claws, fangs, and blades aiming straight for Suho's core. Suho's eyes narrowed. He read the rhythm of their movements, felt the weight behind each swing, but his thoughts raced beneath his calm. "They're weaker than Braki if I fight them individually," he analyzed with a grim set to his jaw. But a bead of sweat trickled down his temple as he watched them coordinate with lethal precision. "It'll be hard for me to defeat them when they're in a team of 3. Even as the goblins continued to rise and fall, Suho stood still, his thoughts weighed with futility. Reviving them endlessly was burning mana for no gain. He knew it. The undead were mere shadows of resistance, and the trio before him wouldn't be slowed by such weak remnants. If he was going to survive this, if he was going to win, he needed to use that method. Then, like a whisper carried on the wind, it called to him. "Young monarch." Baru's voice emerged from the shadows, calm and composed. His presence beside Suho was constant, guiding, watching. As instructed, Baru had only absorbed just enough of Braki's corpse to extract his memories, leaving the body otherwise untouched. It was a choice Suho made, and one not lightly. Shadow soldiers lost strength the longer they remained dead. And yet Suho had preserved Braki. Baru noticed. There had to be a reason. Suho hesitated, then spoke softly. "I thought of something when I saw Braki's last moments." In that memory, soaked in pain and regret, Suho saw more than an enemy's end. He saw a warrior being used, a being torn from his will and driven mad under Iterim's control, a creature robbed of his final dignity. If that fight, if those moments were filled with regret, then maybe, just maybe, he'll fight for me. Not as a beast, but as a warrior. But such a decision could not be made alone. Suho turned toward the solemn figure beside him, gray. The wolf stood by Braki's body, unmoving. It had once fought him. It had seen the chaos he unleashed. Yet now, it held the right to choose. "If I'm to use the shadow authority on him, I need Gray's permission." Suho stepped forward, hand out, heart still. "Gray, is it all right?" The wolf narrowed its eyes, then slowly bowed its head with a low, gruff growl, not of resistance, but of assent. Suho raised his hand and spoke the command, not with arrogance, but with quiet reverence. "Arise." Shadow energy surged through the air, drawn like lightning to a storm. "Braki, if you're regretting it, then I'll give you a chance to fight." The shadows began to move, circling, crawling, sinking into flesh. "If you still carry such desires," Suho's voice echoed, firm and steady, "then respond to me." The forest lay eerily silent as Brocky's lifeless body rested beneath the trees, still and unmoving. The air trembled. Then came a rupture of shadow energy, a whirlwind of darkness and power blasting upward like a geyser, engulfing the surrounding space with ferocious velocity. The ground cracked beneath the force, energy spiraling like a rising typhoon. A new presence emerged, formed of pure spectral power. Brocky's body was no longer that of a beast slain in battle. It was being reborn, reforged, risen. His shape sharpened, muscle and claw wrapped in black flame and shade. A thundering roar echoed across the forest as the rebirth completed. Dark mist spiraled high into the air. From it, at the center stood Brocky, now bathed in abyssal light, his crimson eyes blazing beneath the Shadow Monarch's authority. Brochy stood in front of the demons. Brochy level 1, rank normal. A tide of fear washed through the enemy lines. A sharp, glitched shriek rang out. Brocky, hyenas Brocky. One of the enemies stumbled back in disbelief, recognizing the monster standing reborn before him. That guy's the one who defeated Brocky. Terror twisted their features. For the first time, their overconfidence cracked. And standing tall behind the risen beast, calm, composed, but radiating unmistakable dominance, was Suho. With his shadow forces now assembled, himself, Gray, and the resurrected Brocky, the young monarch stood still, his cloak of darkness pulsing gently with power. The balance of strength had shifted. They now stood evenly matched with the enemy in number, if not in will. Yet before a single move was made, a voice echoed across the void of shadow, cutting through with familiarity and assurance. "Young monarch, I'm here too." It was Baru. Suho's eyes narrowed, sharpened by calm intensity. A spark surged through the air. The time for waiting had passed. With a flash of violet and black, he whispered to the void, "Let's fight it out then." The battlefield trembled beneath their feet. Black lightning danced across the cracked ground as the two forces clashed, power versus power, soul versus soul. The air distorted, and in that swirling chaos, arcs of energy collided midair like the roar of gods at war. A crimson surge tore across the sky. The heavens flickered, and from the shadows of the explosion, an ominous red pulse began to spread outward, swallowing the horizon like fire devouring oil. Static hissed. Red electricity surged. A rift began to open, not one of space, but of fate. Her boots touched the ground with quiet purpose. And in the presence of that surge, an unknown figure watched the collision unfold from afar. She stood shrouded in glowing magenta lightning, her long hair cascading behind her like a stream of battle-forged silk. Her eyes widened. She saw it, an overwhelming burst of dark mana colliding with a monumental force. Her voice trembled, not with fear, but with awe. That's chapter end here. For more, like, share, and subscribe.